And welcome in, ladies, gentlemen, and everything in between to the show that is making roughly $145 million less than Aiden Hutchinson as of a few hours ago. It is the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate y'all so much for joining us here on this Wednesday evening, or if it's one of your favorite places to catch sports shows later on in the week. It is this DJ, joined as always by my co-host Kelsey, as we continue to chase that newly acquired Aiden Hutchinson money. More than TJ Watt, but less than Micah Parsons. But you know what? We'll take it. We'll take anything we can get. We'll even take the difference.
Yeah, at this point in time, I'll take 100 million, 190 million, 80 million, 60 million. I'll even take a fully non-guaranteed contract a la Taysom Hill, the way they're getting paid. This is crazy, man. These contracts keep getting bigger and bigger, and I'm just more like, I really wish I never got hurt in life.
I really wish I was Aiden Hutchinson for more reasons than 7 now. I'd make it 8 as if there wasn't plenty, minus the whole going to the University of Michigan. I could do without that part, but the rest of it I'll take.
Yeah, it's the 7 wonders of the world, right? And then his 8th wonder would have been his college, but he just had to go to Michigan.
What could have been. But you know what? At least he never had to leave the state in his life, so it's continued to work out. Good on him for getting paid an entire bag, and the Lions continuing to find ways to pay people. Who would have ever thought the Lions, but they historically interesting situation when it comes to players and finances and Calvin Johnson, cough, cough. So that's, you know what, good on them and good on the Lions during a bye week doing something productive nonetheless. But got a whole lot to get into the show today. Baseball, football, basketball, college football, fisticuffs, complaining. Where you can bet on this being a pretty fun show overall. We got a lot to get into, but without further ado, let's go and get into the opening part of our show. That is the tip-off brought to your good friends over at SeatGeek. Use code BellyUpSports for $20 off your first purchase. Sports, comedy shows, concerts, anything that requires tickets, use code SeatGeek. Use code BellyUpSports at SeatGeek for $20 off your first purchase. And we're going to start in what, in my opinion, was arguably the best baseball game that I have ever seen. We're going to the World Series. That is not up 2 games apiece, but my lord, was that game 3 quite possibly been the best baseball game I have ever seen. Not just because it went 18 ballistic innings. Thanks a lot, Brad Paisley. As it turns out, you are the one responsible for this. Every time you decide to sing the national anthem, we go to extra. So way to go, Brad. Not only that, though, I think it was the best baseball game through like 8 innings that I'd seen, if not ever in a very, very long time. And then on top of it, you got all the extra innings. We'll take a look at some of the numbers here. For Shohei Ohtani, he was walked 5 times. He hit base 9 different times. 9 different times he touched a bag with 2 home runs, 3 hits, 4. It looks like 8 times he touched base, if I'm reading that correctly. My point is he touched base a lot. Mookie Betts 8 at bats. You could just see the numbers across the board. It was absolutely ridiculous. 15 hits to 16 hits, and you see a lot of zeros from 8 till 18. No runs going up during that time. But it was still a very interesting game nonetheless, because it felt like, for me, it wasn't incompetent offense. It was incredible defensive plays. So each hit actually mattered. It was a perfectly placed landed hit. It wasn't, didn't get there, tripped over my 2 left feet to get to the ball, or I fumbled, or whatever it be. This was one of the best games I've ever seen, and it was the exact opposite of how I predicted. I said the Blue Jays would win every close game and the Dodgers would win going away in their games when we did our pre-World Series predictions. So far, the Dodgers are winning by the skin of their teeth, and when the Blue Jays win, they absolutely lambast them. So I had the right idea. I just flipped the wrong team in blue.
Yeah, no, this is crazy. We always hear about these stories of like the greats of the old days. I always used to hear my family and my dad talk about Johnny Bench throwing guys out from his knees. Some of the crazy games at Polo Ground. Well, obviously he wasn't alive for Polo Grounds, but he wasn't born yet. But my grandpa would talk about Polo Grounds and how great that was. The shot heard around the world. This is like our equivalent. This is our shot heard around the world. This is our Kurt Gibson coming on, hitting the walk-off type of game. This is the uphill both ways type of game we'll be talking about for decades, where this was insane. Just top to bottom. I mean, listen to this. 37 runners were left on base in this game. 25 position players used. By the way, each roster is only 25 players. 19 pitchers used. So in total, between the two, they used just shy of 45 players. They used 44 players across the 2 lineups for a 50-man total roster for both teams combined. And 609 pitches in the game. 312 for the Dodgers, 297 for the Blue Jays. It was a crazy game. I've never seen anything like that where it meant so much, because it is do or die. That game 3 is do or die. You need to win the game. And you just can't, in the World Series, you can't give up anything, and we didn't see anybody give an inch. It was as exciting as you could have imagined. Honestly, I wish I had stayed up that late, but I got the text at 2 in the morning about Freddie Freeman walking it off. And I was like, oh, okay. All right, it happened. I went and watched the replays of after I fell asleep. I mean, the fact I fell asleep 2 hours before the game ended is probably a problem as well. But I don't know, man. This is one of the more exciting games I've ever seen. I've ever read stats on. I've ever seen highlights of. Just for how long it lasted. I mean, 2 full games in a World Series is incredible, and then to turn it back around in less than 48 hours and play another one was as insane as I could have ever imagined.
Less than 24 hours even.
Yeah.
They played the same day technically, because actually it was West Coast. They got to, I think it ended right before midnight for those lucky West Coasters. So they got to technically at least have it on a different day. Us Eastern time zone people are dying, but I also want to use that to take an opportunity to give a shout out to the Canadian Blue Jays, because after a loss like that in game 3 down 2-1, it's very easy to basically fold in the tent at that point and just not be able to get back after it. Basically, like, that's one that could crush you against a team built like the Dodgers. And what do? They come back in game 4, like you said, 12 hours later, and kind of smack the you-know-what out of them. That, I know it's 6-2, so it wasn't even really that close, though, for the most part. I mean, it was 6-1 for the last few innings, it felt like. And I also want to give a shout-out. Clayton Kershaw, known probably a Hall of Fame level pitcher, known, unfortunately, for postseason shortcomings, gets put in a miserable position. They're like, hey, go save us with, I think, 1 out and bases loaded. And he gets them out of that jam in the extra innings, nonetheless, where if he so much as slips or walks the guy, the game is over. So that just being able to shake off some of those postseason demons in the absolute twilight of his career of you should not be playing. You are Udonis Haslam right now. Don't go on there. But, oh, wait, we have to play more players than a college football team does on a given Saturday is how many that have to be played. We need you to go out there. Incredible game. You mentioned all of these pitchers, so many pitches thrown. They ran through it. They ran through the entire roster basically, and then had to come right back in. They get today of the day of recording off, and then they got game 5, then 6 and 7 back to back. And I kind of hope this one goes 7. I want this to get 7. I want game 7 to be like game 3. Just actually, I think that's a Saturday even. So you know what?
Yeah.
No, it's a Sunday. Never mind. Don't do game 3 because people have to wake up on Monday. But like, I want another one. That was just an incredible game 3, and the fact that the Blue Jays were able to rally off of that in the game 4 is testament to them and their management and just the team build as a whole, led by Vlad Guerrero's bomb to really break it open.
Yeah. And by the way, you mentioned Shohei. Dude ended with, I believe, 13, maybe 14 total bases. I can't figure out when he got thrown out on his caught stilling, whether it was stilling third or something else. But yeah, he ended up with 13 or 14 total bases in the game, and that's insane. I think that might be one of the most in postseason history, in World Series history, in a single game. I mean, that's an incredible feat. 2 home runs and to do what else he did it's a wild thing. And I'm not including the walks. I guess I didn't include the walks in any of that. So maybe it's closer to 20 at that point in time. So yeah, I don't even know what to think about this. But it set the stage for what has been an incredible series, and what I was wrong about. It wasn't 5 games. It could have been 5 games if the Blue Jays hadn't come back after that heartbreaker. But they did. And so now we're 2-2, game 5 coming up. And it's the rubber match that's going to probably determine the likelihood for who's going to win. And that's, I don't know. We'll see what happens from here. But I think this has been much to the complaints of those who hate the World Series being out of the USA. Let me just go ahead and say I think this team is well deserving to be in there in the Blue Jays. And please shut up about that, because as baseball fans, we should root for all teams and not just big market teams. Unless you want to turn into the NBA in the 60s with the Celtics Lakers series. I don't want that. But hey, if you guys want that, go do your thing.
Honestly, if they have that much of a problem, they just think of them as the across the border Guardians at this point. Because they have like 7 of them, so think of them like Guardians of Jason.
They're 90 miles away from me in a direct single direction across water.
There you go. Think of them, they're a boat right away, so they still count. But everyone, let us know down below if this was one of the best sporting events you've ever watched, and if not, let us know what your favorite one you've ever seen is. And depending on what team you're a fan of, this next topic might be your favorite sporting moment of all time. Is the LSU Tigers head football team will have a new head coach moving forward, as Brian Kelly is no longer the head man at LSU after a disappointing start to the season, bringing in yet another loss. And we'll start with not really surprised. Kind of happy for the LSU players and team and staff and fandom. Honestly, I mean, we're not going to sugarcoat that one. But do you think he's going to get another job? Do you think he's in line for another job anytime soon? I think if he does it, I don't think it's going to be maybe a major D1 program. I think he might have to take a step back a little bit. Just everything that does surround him, and what worked like in Notre Dame is he got the results, so you were able to deal with the rest of it. At LSU, he didn't get quite the same results. So I think he'll get a job probably before next season. I just don't know if it'll be like a major program, if that makes sense. He might have to maybe go back to like a Cincinnati level school, something like that. It might have to be like a step back. But yes, I'm not gonna say Tulane. We do love ourselves some Tulane, but
I was like, did you just say that about Cincinnati? That the Kelsey fandom just like might have.
I'm talking about like the Ohio State, Michigans, like those major D1 competing, like those ones that are always in that, like those Power 5.
Hey, they've been Cincinnati has been in a playoff game more recently than USC.
You get my point, though.
I'm just saying.
All right, fine. Then we can send him. We can send him to North Dakota State then, but they don't need him. They're doing.
Yeah, I was like, let's not send him to North Dakota State. Let's also not send him to. Oh man, what's the one in Carolina? In D2.
No, JMU's Virginia.
Yeah. Who cares? Anyways, but if Bobby Petrino has a job, then Brian Kelly will forever have a job somewhere. He also has $54 million in a buyout here to really soak his tears in, so I don't feel bad for him.
He doesn't need a job.
No, he's been one of those coaches that I've not liked for a long time. I don't think it's any surprise that it's what he's been doing as a coach has been a joke for a while. He tries to look at it from a CEO's perspective, but he tries to act like he's the best friend. Pick one, stay in your lane. Nick Saban could be a CEO. He'll rip you a new one. He'll pull you aside quietly and tell you he loves you. But Brian Kelly never did either of those things. He just stand there from a distance and then yell at you and blame everything else on everybody else, even though you're the one calling the offensive plays, Brian Kelly. So yeah, no, I'm glad to see him go. I think, although I kind of wish he would have stayed a little bit longer, because I do enjoy watching the wrong Tigers keep failing so miserably, because it makes me happy as an Auburn fan. But you know what? From the perspective of kids playing football there and hoping to have a career in the NFL, I'm glad that they actually got rid of him.
I gotta say, it's very telling that no players or former players have ever. Now, I haven't seen one come out and say anything positive about him. You've seen a lot of negatives. A lot of he did this, he was awful. We saw the Kyron Lacey family speak negatively about him following that situation as well. You saw a few other players that had to medically retire say, I never heard from him once I was forced to. There hasn't been one person just like, hey, thanks, guy. Or not even a good luck. Like, there's not been one positive thing said about him from anyone that I've seen. If there was, I completely missed it, I guess. Like, just nobody. So that's very, very telling, considering he did kill a kid.
Look, Robert Saleh and Matt LaFleur, two coaches in the NFL who are well respected, have never said a nice thing about him. And they were on his staff at Central Michigan. This is a Central Michigan Brian Kelly, who should be probably the most respectful person in the world. They told the story of, as graduate assistants, they were asked to come to a party, not as guests, but to work the party, clean up, sweep up afterwards, and get treated like crap by Brian Kelly, while all these rich boosters hung around with Brian Kelly.
I think they were the Coke guys too, or something like that.
Yeah.
They were literally the lackeys.
Yeah, they were the gophers. They were if somebody spilled something, they had to go clean it up. Somebody had to go park valet. Robert Saleh talked about parking valet. And he claimed it was quote unquote paying your dues is what Brian Kelly told them. And that's the joke. That's the biggest joke I've ever heard in my life, where this is a D1 coach and this is what you're doing for paying dues. Get out of here. No, I'm glad to see him go. Glad to see LSU players maybe get a chance at, getting some support from a head coach. I'd love to see another Ed Orgeron type of hire here for LSU, because that works at LSU. But I doubt it'll happen.
It's a good transition to the second part of this question is, who do you think is the guy at LSU? There's a handful of different names that have been floated around there. I've seen some throw out Nick Saban, which I don't think he's coming back. No. I think him and Miss Terry are perfectly content with where they're at, hanging out with Pat.
He did his Baton Rouge one time. He's not going back.
That's it. I've heard Lane Kiffin's name thrown out there as well, which I think is, of course, very interesting if he wants to leave Ole Miss. There's a handful of other names that have been thrown around there. When you think LSU, Brian Kelly's replacement, who do you think is – who's somebody that you would like to see in that role, or who's someone that you think should get or will get the role?
I keep seeing James Franklin floated recently, and it bothers me. I don't like it as much. You know, you mentioned Tulane earlier, and I think that's a really good place to go shopping for a head coach for LSU. Talk about Louisiana State University. Let's go get Louisiana's second favorite child, Toledo, and their head coach in John Sumrall. I think he is a guy who played in the SEC in his playing career, has had an incredible time at Toledo, has proven he can win with a Power Five, Group of Five, whatever you want to classify them as, the next team up after the Power Four conferences in Toledo. I think that's the head coach you want to look for the future for LSU. I will also say one other name, and I think it's just because of the novelty that the 2019 seasons looked at. But I think Brady from Buffalo, their OC, Joe Brady, I think him returning to LSU makes a lot of people wet their whistles. And I you know what? If you want to, I guess. But yeah, those are my two picks. I think John Sumrall or Joe Brady would be a good option.
I do like Summerall. I'm going to throw this one out. I don't think it will happen, but it would be very interesting. I know a lot of fans like John Gruden LSU would be very, very interesting if that's something he'd want to do and that'd be like he'd want to take on that college challenge. Because I think he relates to the college athlete a little bit better than Bill Belichick. So I don't think it'll be like the UNC catastrophe we have going on here. And from what I understand, John Gruden's I'm going to leave that part alone, actually. I'm not even going to touch base on where I was going to go with that. But I think if he really wanted to do it, I think that'd be a very good fit because he's still got some pull. He's still John freaking Gruden. And he has even more pull now with the younger generations, what he's been doing like online and that sort of stuff too. Yep. He still knows the game clearly. He's still engulfed in it. And I think he'd be able to revitalize keeping the Louisiana kids in state very well. I think he has a very charismatic personality, I think, that will work with parents and the athletes there. So I think that's a very underrated one. I don't know if it would work. That's kind of a spitball thing. I do like Summerall, though. I think that's also a really good one. So I'm going to take that as a second one because I think Lane Kiffin's good at Ole Miss right now. I know it makes sense, and that's a big bump with all the resources you'd have, but I feel like he's the type of guy that's like, you know what, all things I've been through, I'm going to get my own statue in Oxford. I'm going to chill here, and I'm going to keep revitalizing this place, and I'm just going to run this place for a while and be like, they're going to have a statue for what I'm going to do here instead of leaving early.
Look, if Lane Kiffin leaves Oxford right now, it will be the biggest shock in my lifetime. I would be the most shocked to watch him do that. It would be more shocking than Nick Saban's overnight departure from the Dolphins. It would be more shocking than Lane Kiffin's departure from Tennessee in the middle of the night where they burned mattresses. It'd also be more shocking than Steve Sarkisian being left on a tarmac, or Herm Edwards, or any coach being left anywhere. With Herm Edwards, Arizona State firing. This would be the most shocking thing if Lane Kiffin ends up in LSU. But one thing about the AD for LSU, he always swings big, no matter which sport it is. So it wouldn't shock me if he's being courted, but it also wouldn't shock me if maybe they go fight for a Marcus Freeman who has had conversations around him, or Jimbo Fisher, or there's a disgruntled head coach / boosters are disgruntled with the head coach over in South Carolina and Clemson. Like maybe they go get Dabo. There are so many different things that could come into play here. Now, do I think Dabo ends up in LSU? No chance. I think he's an Alabama guy at his heart of hearts. He was an Alabama corner. I don't know if he ends up in LSU because you know anything about Alabama versus LSU, you know it's not something you cross the lines on very often.
One Tiger to another, right? He'll go from there to Auburn. He'll keep the Tiger lineage going his entire coaching.
Yeah, no. Dabo can he can stay out of Auburn. That's okay. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what Woodward's going to do, the AD for LSU, but I do know he swings big. So I really hope he doesn't in this case. I hope he plays it smart. I think the John Sumrall hire is a great one. That's my number one. My number two being Joe Brady from the Buffalo Bills, just bringing him back to college, seeing if he can revitalize what he did with Joe Burrow somewhere else, again, as an OC, as our head coach in this case.
In the same vein, I'll throw out a name like Cliff Kingsbury possibly to try and court him from Washington, since we saw what Sarkisian did, like really good offensive coordinator at the next level, surprisingly good head coach minus this year. In college, maybe they do something like that where they go back and forth on that swing back when things go really well. But it's going to be very interesting to watch because LSU is still a premier program as far as resources, prestige, and if you're good, the getting's good there in Baton Rouge if the getting's good. But let us know down below what you all are thinking about the LSU coaching hire and how happy you are Brian Kelly has been let go on a scale of 1 to 10. But one thing Brian Kelly has not seen, well, he has seen, but it's no thanks to him, is he has seen one Heisman winner on his watch, and they did that in spite of him, We're now going to Kelsey's Heisman hierarchy for week 10 now, I believe it is, as Kelsey will give his top 3 candidates for the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, week 10. It's good to be back. Real quick honorable mentions here for this. Diego Pavia and also Julian Sayin. They're not still on my top 3, but you know what? You guys are close. You guys were way closer than I think I was comfortable with. My number 3, I'm going to start it off with a guy that doesn't change yet again, Marcel Reed from Texas A&M. He stays up there. If you guys haven't been watching, please tune in. 17 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 1,900 yards on the season. Continues to win for a Texas A&M team that is going for an SEC title. They play Mizzou this week. We're going to see what they can do. It's very interesting to watch this team. If they keep winning, nobody's stopping them right now. He plays in one of the hardest conferences, but he's not the only guy playing in that. So number 2 on the list is the other quarterback from the SEC, Ty Simpson. Like I said it before, I'll say it again. The dude is throwing lights out right now. 2,100 yards, 20 touchdowns, 1 interception, 81.9 QBR, which is for 13th best in the nation. And again, has had Alabama since the Florida State game rolling. He hasn't, and Marcel Reed has had moments like the Auburn game for Marcel Reed was not a great game. Ty Simpson's only bad game was Florida State and a loss. Since then, 20 touchdowns. It is remarkable what he's doing. He has been leading that team from the front. And it's hard for me to go anywhere else than him right now. But there is one better, and that's Fernando Mendoza. I think he jumped this week from 2 to 1, but that's okay because it's still the same 3. 1,900 yards, 1923, 24 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 4th in the nation in QBR with an 88.7. He's been lights out. And again, talk about another team. And I misspoke when we talked about Indiana earlier this year when I said that they had to need somebody else to stumble. I was wrong. They didn't. They just went and made Penn State stumble and made everybody else stumble in front of them in Oregon. And they've been lights out. They've been incredible. We'll see what ends up happening at the end of the year. 8-0 right now, led by Fernando Mendoza, to the point where his brother Alberto got put in, and he was rooting for him on the sideline as Alberto ran in a touchdown. Like, I don't want to say we're going to see a Mendoza bloodline coming through into the NFL through Indiana, but it feels like we're going that route here. But yeah, Fernando is playing incredible this year. Been doing great since he was a Cal quarterback. So let's see what he can continue doing going forward. Obviously, these can change. This is the tightest it's ever been. Julian Sayin's still there. Jeremiah Smith's still there. Diego Pavia is still there. But for right now, these are my 3.
Dante Moore's not too far away either as well.
No.
Like, it's a very competitive race, and it's got to be good to be living in Indiana these last 12 months as a sports fan. You got Indiana Hoosiers, you got the Colts, you got the Pacers coming off an NBA Finals, you got the Fever being the Fever. Like, you know what? It's a good time, at least sports-wise for Indiana. Everything else, maybe not so much because it's Indiana, but sports-wise, it is looking pretty good. And I'm very curious to see if Marcel Reed, he's always been in here, but he has had trouble kind of jumping these other guys because A&M's such a unit. They're such a well-rounded unit. They got 5 running backs toting it. If he's going to be able to do anything to really climb. Because what he's doing now is great, but it's not going to jump those other 2 guys. And some of the other teams' guys will jump him. So I think if he's able to have maybe a few more of those like Notre Dame moments like we had early on in the season, I wonder if that's something that could propel him to jump. Because like you mentioned, he's been good. He's on here for a reason. He just hasn't been able to quite mimic what those other guys do because A&M's such a well-rounded machine. While those other guys, they are the machine. They're keeping the engine going.
Yeah, I mean, if you add in his rushing yards, he's well over Ty Simpson's total yardage as well. But I don't know. I still struggle with Marcel's winningness. It feels like Fernando and Ty are leading their team from the front every time. And Marcel, like you said, there's 5 running backs back there, and then Marcel Reed as well. So there are 6. Yeah, and there are 6 guys toting the rock each and every time that you could easily watch them break through any defense right now, and they are. That's why they're undefeated. But it's hard to say that he is better than any of these guys. And honestly, if you told me Marcel Reed wins the Heisman, I'd be like, all right, cool. If you told me Ty Simpson wins the Heisman, all right, yeah, that's cool. Fernando Mendoza, absolutely right now, leading the nation in passing touchdowns. I'd agree with any one of them. If you told me Julian Sayin is going to win a Heisman, I'd agree with you. Diego Pavia is the first one I have hesitation at, and it's not because of him. It's because his team hasn't won every game as emphatically as these 3 guys have. And Julian Sayin, it's hard for me to separate Jeremiah Smith and his success from Julian Sayin. And so it's why both of them have not made my top 3. And so that's the hardest part, is where like Marcel Reed is there, but he's not quite there yet. And I just need a little bit more from him. Which, hey, the last 5 games of the season, I expect a lot from Texas A&M and Alabama and Indiana to close it out. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's been exciting so far.
A lot of this can be decided if things go the way they're going during those championship weeks, where you might have Marcel Reed versus Ty Simpson and Mendoza versus Sain and Jeremiah Smith. If things continue on the track that they're on to, it could get very interesting when we get to those conference championship weekends. But let us know down below who you all have for your Heisman hierarchies, who you like, who you don't like, and who you would change around there. And let's try and do it cordially. Last time some of you were a little bit mouthy, so let's keep it a little bit cordial now.
Hey, I respect mouthy, just mouthy respectfully.
When I say mouthy, it's like just don't make fun of my head shape. That's about all I got for you. But I was going to do it here for the tip-off, which will now take us into the main event. And for the main event, we're going to go ahead and step onto the hardwood, and we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the NBA right now. As the season is underway, and the NBA is the most dramatic league in sports, and it's not even close. Like the drama surrounding it is more interesting than the leagues or than the actual games. We're going to start with the good, though. Let's get the good things coming out of the way for the NBA right now. This new media deal where we have primetime games basically 4 days a week, I believe, 4 or 5 days a week. I love this. I get to see. I don't have to go searching. I don't need to get NBA League Pass to watch any good team. I don't have to just wait for ESPN at 10 o'clock on Wednesdays or Fridays. Like you got ESPN some nights, Amazon, NBC. You got them all over the place. I love having all the access to that because it is a everyday sport when the season gets going. I like having easy access to games every single day. It's not like they're randomly blocked like you would see, like if they were on Bally Sports when that was a thing. Sometimes you'd have trouble finding games in those situations. Every local area has their own issues with that. So I love the easy access to multiple games, especially after the commissioner had decided to say it was a highlight sport, not a full game watching sport. So I'm glad that their actions are speaking better than their words, because my goodness, we don't need basketball to turn into a TikTok sport any more than it already is. I also love that with all of these different networks, we also get the ability to get different programming around them. We have different shows. It's not just the first takes of the world. You get different shows that are built around breakdowns. I've seen Udonis Haslam breaking down how to defend certain pick and rolls and certain coverages. You can get the in-depth stuff. You can get the casual stuff. You can get the yelling and screaming incoherently. You can get the mediocre perk jokes. You can get pretty much anything you need across various networks at the same time. So that's what I'm going to say about the good of the NBA, how they expanded their media accessibility rights for the games as well as the coverage of it. I love what they've done so far for that. So that's the good for me.
Yeah. I actually agree with you on the media rights packaging. I think it's incredible. There's an average of 4 games a night, which before there was maybe a game on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, but it was like maybe it's TNT, maybe it's USA. We don't even know anymore. Maybe it's just NBA League Pass. But yeah, you get 4 games on slow nights, and you get 6 games. Like tonight, there's 6 games. Tomorrow, there's 4 games, and then the next day, there's 8 games or 6 games, and then 8 games on the weekend. It's great. I enjoy it. It's something that you and I talked about this off air leading into the season. There was a breakdown we saw online, which was incredible to watch what it meant for the game, as far as how it's all getting broken down and how the media rights are getting paid out and everything. And it's so cool to see that the NBA is embracing that. But the other good thing I've seen from the NBA is growth from players that I've been excited to see healthy again. Tyrese Maxey being number one of them. His points per game right now has been outstanding. Seeing offensive games existing, and not just that, but Wemby being a defensive monster as well as an offensive monster. I'm glad to see he's healthy. So it's kind of a combination of guys getting back healthy, playing well, that you were excited to see come back. That's really what it is for the other good. I have no other major goods. The Kings are disappointing, so it is what it is. But yeah, honestly, it's been a fun start to the season. I do enjoy it.
Absolutely. Now we got to there's an elephant in the room, and you could bet on us talking about this one. You could add a wager of how long we were going to take to get into it, but it's about time. There's the giant betting scandal that's hanging right over that just smacked us right in the head at the top of the season. I'm not going to read the entire article because I know you all have seen it. We kind of waited a little bit to get into this, letting some things come out a little bit and just how it all lined up. But to keep it a long story short, Chauncey Billups and Damon Jones involved in a mafia poker game invitational with a lot of money on the line, using different things like x-ray glasses, see-through tables, basically, for lack of better terms, hustling very wealthy people out of a lot of money their role as face cards and members of the cheating teams. For those two, rigged poker games across prominent crime families. It's literally something you see on HBO After Dark in the early 2000s at this point. And then Terry Rozier. Yeah, this one's the one that I'm a little more concerned with. I'm going to touch on right now because betting on your unders, telling people to bet on your unders and then leave you with injury, directly rigging the game through the sports betting abilities. And this is the problem with sports betting. This is the issue that so many of the opposers were exactly talking about. And he proved him 100% correct, which I don't understand. I don't get it. For one, let's have a little self-awareness now. If people are going to put a massive amount of money on Terry Rozier unders, people are going to recognize some very weird filings. That's not a common bet place. Like if you're telling your friends, hey, I'm going to fake an injury at 4 points, no dub. People are like, wow, someone bet 200,000 on a Terry Rozier under. Let's go take a look at that. Like, come on, let's have a little self-awareness on top of it. We'll get that part of stupidity out of the way. But this is what sucks. This is what really takes away from not only the sport, but the betting industry as well. We have gambling segments on our show all the time. So it's one of those, not going to tell people don't gamble. We're not going to tell people don't get involved. Not going to say they should be restricted, but this is why you almost for NBA, it almost feels like you need to take for prop bets. They should consider taking away the unders. You can only bet the overs at this point. If you don't like them to go over, then you don't bet on that player. And then maybe for points, the point spreads and the money line stuff like that's kind of difficult to facilitate, obviously. But it almost feels like that so you can avoid a situation like this happening, especially considering the NBA is lockstep, arm in arm with all these betting companies. They're saying kumbaya and making out in the backstage on the back of the bed. So at this point, if they're going to be that aligned, they have to do something to kind of prevent this from happening. It's bound to happen. It's easier to get caught now than it's ever been because it's easier to do than it's ever been. But this is that's a terrible look, and it's a very bad look for a league that unfortunately is very dicey when it comes to good and bad looks. And I think this is a very bad one. I think they need to find a way to mitigate this because this is terrible. What's even worse is they did their own investigation allegedly and said they were cleared. And then the FBI got involved. And well, now we know how this all plays out. So that's a bad situation. I think they can't just sweep this under a rug. It's going to be sitting there for a while. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do to try and handle it. If they're going to truly hope that they can sweep it under the rug and maybe skinny Luka will save them.
Yeah. There's a lot more to this whole conversation that I don't know, that bothers me. So we'll go line by line here. Let's start with you mentioned the partnership, lockstep in partnership. So formerly the NBA used to have an ownership stake in FanDuel. However, they divested that ownership stake to then become official partners with DraftKings and FanDuel. And so now you look at the situation where you're allowing NBA players to put their likeness on it, to have the branding on their jerseys, to use official NBA logos and jerseys on the sports books. Now you take this one step further. Players are also allowed to own up to 1% of the total sports book if it takes NBA bets. If it doesn't take NBA bets, it could be more. So just specific to sports books that take NBA bets, you can own up to 1%, which is an insane amount. You've seen LeBron James with DraftKings have a very large outpouring of support. There are questions about players from the past who are now GMs and owners, namely one number 23 for the Chicago Bulls, Michael Jordan, who is still a part owner of the Charlotte Hornets and received an equity stake in DraftKings in exchange for an advisory role in promoting the company. Also, Tillman Fertitta, who is the Houston Rockets owner, acquired stock in DraftKings as part of the sale of his Golden Nugget online gaming company in 2021. So now we have ownership, we have GMs, we have players, we have the league as a whole invested in sports betting. And you want to tell me there's not some sort of script out there somewhere? The house always wins is a line from Vegas, and that's all I'm going to stay with that. Because I do enjoy NBA basketball. I do respect players' desire to get money, and they should get their money. I enjoy sports betting as a fun thing to do that doesn't cost a lot of money because I don't bet crazy. I mean, my average bet is like 25 cents. I'm fine. So it is a situation where we have seen other professional sports leagues like Serie A in Italy soccer league. We've seen the English Premier League. We've seen UEFA. We've seen CONCACAF. We've seen all of FIFA be riddled with sports betting issues. One of the greatest sports teams of all times in Major League Baseball is now known as the Black Sox because they bet on themselves too much because I think 9 of the 11 players indicted actually physically placed bets. We have one of the greatest all-time hitters will never be enshrined in the Hall of Fame, will likely never be enshrined in the Hall of Fame while he was alive, in Pete Rose. All because betting scandals. And you want to tell me that we're going to continue to invest in this? Like, I'm fine with sports betting existing and NBA playing. Don't mix the two. They're oil and water. Keep them separate. That's what they need to be. When this happens, you open up players, you open up young kids who are looking up to these players for very bad things. And it's not a positive timeline. It's like the NIL. You got to put some reins on this. You got to rein this back real quick and in a hurry because it gives it in for groups like there's a mafia expert quoted in this article. I mean, come on. We're literally talking about a syndicated crime organization determining what should be a game for millions, potentially billions of dollars. Like, this is ridiculous. I hate that the NBA has allowed this to happen. I hate that sports leagues have allowed their players to step into this paddle. They should have taken the page out of what European soccer is doing, which is no athletes and no teams are allowed to use official jersey logos and appear on commercials. They shouldn't allow that. That needs to be a rule. You cannot invest in a sports book. Those should be rules. I don't care if you place bets on other leagues, but you shouldn't be allowed to place bets on your own league specifically. And Terry Rozier, you owe me $1.25, sir, for all the bets that I should have cashed that were you checking out early because of quote unquote injury. But yeah, this is a debacle, and it's not just the NBA. The NFL has part stake in the ESPN Bet app, and that's an issue because that's encouraging people to go place bets on a sports book, on a specific sports book, and they have direct ties to it. Like the whole betting issue, it's beyond the NBA at this point in time. But since we're talking about just the NBA, I'll limit myself to that. But there's a lot of issues there.
The best part is while they were covering this situation when it first broke, they literally had the ESPN bet bug in the corner for like the first 4 minutes that you saw it randomly disappear. We're like, oh crap, this is not a good look. This is not a good look. And I'm not even one to say there shouldn't be sports betting. I think that they needed to find a way to regulate this type of thing from happening. Whether that is don't be so deep in bed with those companies because this is the type of thing that happens. It's going to happen regardless. It's unavoidable. Even if this wasn't so widely available, I'm sure it happened before. It's just harder to catch because it's pretty much a Vegas only thing. Maybe you take away the apps and you can only make those bets in actual sports books. But even then,
no, don't do that.
I mean, I know we don't want that. I'm saying in general, I'm spitballing ideas. Like they gotta be ready to answer for this. Like they gotta take ways to make preventative steps before this happens. You can't have an investigation, clear it. Then 2 months later, the FBI is like, we got a problem here. And then arrest 34 people, including those that you cleared. Definitely takes some steam out of multi-billion-dollar industries and multi-billion-dollar entertainment fund.
There are leagues across the world. There are countries across the world who have different forms of legalized sports betting. And all of them do very similar things because they've all gone through situations like that, like what we're seeing right now. And yet the only country that's not doing it with any of the professional sports leagues is the U.S. There's the idea that you can go what Japan does with pachinko, where it's not actually physically money that you're seeing bet. You're buying, they use marbles, and those marbles result in prizes. Well, maybe you buy tickets, and those tickets result in, you've seen that when sports betting first started, they came in with units, and like you had to buy X amount of units. It's the same concept. It's just demonetizing the obvious monetization aspect of it. It makes things harder and makes things like people don't want to do it as much. And I hate to say they need to be put in those regulations, but we're going to get a much different conversation about regulations potentially here. But yeah, there's a problem and it needs to be fixed. And there's so many different case studies out there in different parts of the world in different developmental stages of this, but they're all well beyond where the U.S. is with sports betting. Maybe take a couple pages from them.
We're going to end this on the good note, though, as despite all of that, I am still excited for all of the positive different outlets we have to watch the games. Hopefully, they're not just being rigged and I don't have too many early injuries or anything like that. The fact that I can see Victor Wembanyama go absolutely ballistic a lot easier than I have in the past because multiple ways to watch the game. So I am excited about that. And that's a lot of money involved in those, means a lot more money for everybody, which hopefully means a little bit less betting the unders because if you make that much, we're not going to dive into why. What we're going to do is talk about one game and one player that the spread did change at the last minute, but it didn't change the outcome whatsoever as we go to the NFL. And for the Ravens getting ready to suit up tomorrow on Thursday, nevermore, the Ravens might have survived as they might still be alive for the playoffs as Lamar Jackson slated to return for Thursday Night Football. They got a long ways to go. They are 3-6, I believe, is the record. So they still got or not 3-6, 3-4. 2-4. You are correct. I gave them one too many wins. I got ahead of myself, but they're still alive for the playoffs because the AFC North is a mess. They're at the bottom, but the Bengals, Joe Flacco's now banged up, so who knows what's going to happen there. They can't keep Joe's healthy to save their life. The Browns are the Browns. And then the Steelers are nobody believes in the Steelers. So are the Ravens still? What do you give the Ravens playoff chances if Lamar is able to come back and stay healthy the rest of the way?
Yeah, I mean, I was wrong, by the way. It's 2-5 is what they are.
Okay,
but yeah, so all right, let's look at percentages. Teams that have won 2 games through 7 weeks and made it to the playoffs, I think, is like less than 5% of total ever. Like maybe 2 teams in the entire history of the league since I started tracking that. But like you said, this division is very winnable. The best team is 4-3. 3-5 is ahead of you with a backup quarterback who is over 40 years old. By the way, number 1 team in the league also has an over 40-year-old at quarterback. And the Browns are the 4th team in the division, and they don't even know who they want to start at quarterback because they said they'd start Shedeur and then they start Dylan Gabriel, and now they're waffling again. Who knows? Who knows what's happening? So can the Ravens fix it with Lamar? No, because Lamar's not the only problem. This defense, specifically their corners, have continued to suck. I called this out 3 years ago, and I called this out 2 years ago, and I called it out last year. And I'm going to say it again. Your corners look like they're stuck in quicksand. Whatever it is, it's quickcrete around their feet. I don't know what it is, but they sit on everything, and they expect Kyle Hamilton and this secondary and these safeties to try to cover over the top on everything, and it doesn't help them. I hate watching the Ravens corners try to defend because it is seriously like watching small high school kids try to go make a big play every time, and they just get blown by. It's the same complaints I had about Trayvon Diggs when he was, making all these picks in the world, but giving up 2,000 yards. Like, you got to pick one, and I'd rather you not give up the yardage because then you're not going to give up the touchdowns. It's very simple, procedurally simple. Obviously, execution is a problem. So will Lamar be the only issue that's solved, or will Lamar be enough to fix it? Probably not. No, there's a lot of problems in this Ravens organization right now defensively. They need to figure out. Until that's figured out, I could run Snoop Huntley out there all day long, and I'd still feel the same as I do. I'd feel a little worse with Snoop than I do with Lamar. Lamar is still a fantastic quarterback, and he still has Derrick Henry. They still have weapons offensively, but also that offensive line is slow and old too. Like, they don't look up to snuff. So my biggest issue with them, though, is defense. That needs to be fixed before we get into anything talking about are they saved with Lamar return? Because no, but they got a buoy, that's for sure. But that defense needs to figure it out.
I'm in agreement with their defense. The one thing I will look at with them returning is the schedule gets a little more interesting, at least, because they were 1-3 with Lamar. So I don't think that's going to change a whole lot. Granted, you did play the Chiefs, the Lions, the Bills are the teams you lost to. So maybe, which is why I'm also not taking much out of them beating the brakes off the Bears, because the Bears are that team that as soon as you start to think they might be something, they'll let you down. That's pretty much been their MO at this point. That this was right on cue. That's why I feel bad I'm sorry for DJ's best bets. I thought with Snoop Huntley they could cover +2.5 and lose by 1. I didn't realize they were going to I didn't realize they were going to squander a 6-0 lead, but I digress. Dolphins, a very winnable game. Vikings, a very winnable game. Browns are the Browns. Jets, an incredibly winnable game. The 2 Bengals games, we'll see. I mean, they should be very winnable games. The Steelers, the 2 Steeler games, those are tough. It's always been tough. The Patriots, surprisingly really tough. The Packers, surprisingly tough. There's a pathway, but they got to go on a run. They're at 2-5, as you mentioned. In the AFC, you probably got to get to at least 9 wins. So you got to go 7-3 the rest of the way at least.
Just to win your division, you got to get 9 wins.
And you might even be able to get the wild card because the AFC is kind of very top heavy right now. But like you said, to win the division, we're going to say 9 games is the safe spot. So you got to go 7-3 the rest of the way. Doable, especially if the Steelers do what they do best in recent years and fall apart down the stretch. Especially if the Bengals, I don't even know what to say with the Bengals. They can't keep Joe's healthy, and it looks like it's gonna be Jake Browning again. And then with the Browns, it's the Browns. I mean, they always have those weird competitive games every year where the Browns suddenly almost beat them, but we'll see. Vikings, Dolphins, they have to beat the Dolphins, Vikings, Jets. They can't miss those. They got to pull off either the Patriots or the Packers, I think. Then I think they have a chance. But it's a rough going. I think their issues are not solved with Lamar to the back. He slaps some duct tape on that breaking dam at least. They have a chance at winning 35-33, whereas without him, they're not really getting to 35. So I won't rule it out, but I will say if he's able to somehow win, if they're able to win the division, get like 11 wins, go on a run, he might earn himself another MVP despite missing 3 weeks at the way he'd probably have to play, assuming that defense isn't about to completely overhaul and correct itself.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think the one thing with them, obviously, the Bengals you keep mentioning, like part of the Bengals situation is you might have Joe Burrow for that second game with the Bengals. That could change a lot of things. It'll be interesting to see what the Raiders do because, like you said, it's not just Lamar. They were 1-3 with Lamar. It was like Marlon Humphrey is turning into a podcaster. Like he is going the route of.
He's talking about eating 50 hot dogs now. I don't need him talking about glizzies when he's getting glizzy god over the top.
Well, and this is one of the things. On his show, he talked about how Lamar, he said he wasn't going to give away the player at first, but Lamar gave himself away early on. But he told him to Lamar told the team that they're going to remove all games from the locker room because they are obviously not focused on football. That tells me that there is a bigger issue in this locker room than what's just happening on the field. There's an issue with buy-in into success. You mentioned how much players are getting paid when we're talking about NBA. Maybe some of these guys, and I don't like the idea of saying this, but maybe some of these guys who are overpaid or who are well into their career need to get cut, need to get released because right now they have a lot of old heads on defense and especially that defensive back room and that corner position that don't do a whole lot of good.
It definitely doesn't help that their pass rush has taken a real hit these last 2 years. When you think of Ravens of yesteryear, like they terrorize quarterbacks. Even if they didn't have a Terrell Suggs or a Haloti Nod in those guys individuals, even when they had Jadeveon Clowney in a couple of years ago and they had the number 1 ranked defense, like they just found ways to get after the quarterback, which they have really struggled with this year, even in spite of everything. They just really haven't been able to get after, which amplifies the corner issue on top of it. But we'll see if they can start to get healthy. They're lucky they're in the North and not. I can't believe that these words are about to come out of my mouth. They're lucky it's the AFC North and not the AFC South, so they actually have a pathway to winning the division. I can't believe those words came out of my mouth, and I feel disgusting. I need to wash my mouth out with a bar of soap. Either way, it's going to take an MVP caliber performance from Lamar, which is a good segue into our next part of the show, and that is the MVP ladder, where it's similar to Kelsey's Heisman hierarchy. I'm going to break down the top 3 guys we have in the NFL for MVP ladder, and for the first time, a guy who did not play is going to make his debut on the ladder. Bring in Matthew Stafford sitting at the number 3 spot. Bye week this last week, and you know what? He leads the NFL in touchdown passes, still tied with Patrick at 17. He's, I think, 7th in yards, only 2 interceptions. He has been absolutely outstanding this year. Even without Puka, what did he do? He threw 5 touchdowns. In London, in the Jags home stadium in London, where they never lose, he dropped a full hand on them, and it continues to be outstanding. Even in his old age, the old man Matthew Stafford continues to get it done. So Stafford coming in at the 3 spot. Number 2, Patrick Mahomes. He was okay Monday. I mean, he's still tied for the NFL lead in touchdown passes. He has the most total touchdowns in the NFL when you include his rushing. He's towards the top in passing yards. They've been rolling. They've scored 28 plus points the last 5 weeks combined or so. Since the first 3 weeks, he's been absolutely cooking. He was number 1 last week, rightfully deserved. The reason he's not number 1 though is because it's time. It's been long overdue. It's been 13 years, and we had a chance 2 years ago, and we screwed it up because we are a problem as a country, and it is time to be fixed. We have a non-quarterback at the top of the list. Jonathan Taylor is leading the spot for MVP right now. Leads the NFL in touchdowns by a lot. It's not even close. I'm pretty sure he's almost doubled up second place. He's at 14 total touchdowns. I think second place is at 8. He leads the NFL in rushing yards, leads them in carries, leads them in rushing touchdowns. He's on pace to, I believe, tie or break LT's touchdown record. He's on pace. He already has as many touchdowns this year as Saquon had all of last year during Saquon's epic run. Sorry, he's 1 touchdown less because Saquon had 15. You have plenty of games. He's going to continue to get more. His season's not over yet. It's the number 1 team in the NFL record-wise, an historically effective offense and rushing game. If I'm not mistaken, if you took out all of their passing, they would still be an elite offense. Like their EPA would still be at the top because of how good that run game has been. They've been absolutely sensational, and it's led by Jonathan Taylor. It does not have to be a quarterback to win the MVP award. Dang it. It's been 13 years. It's okay if things continue at this pace. And that Colts team ends up as a number 1 seed behind Jonathan Taylor's 2,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. I think it's okay to give it to a running back. He doesn't have to be defaulted to Offensive Player of the Year because Patrick with the 3 seed happened to throw for 33 touchdowns and 4,000 yards, or Stafford with 35 and 4,000 yards. Great seasons, not MVP. Jonathan Taylor is the MVP right now, and at the rate he's going, he's going to be rushing right into the record books. Colt fortified Jonathan Taylor, number 1 in the MVP ladder as of right now.
Okay, I like that, and I hope that'll happen, but let's be realistic here. If it's not him, let's at least choose his teammate, who is currently 4th in the league in his passing. But I'm not disagreeing with any of your list. I actually understand why your list is the way it is. But yeah, I do have a question just to raise to you about Jonathan Taylor, because I am curious about this, because this is the age-old argument, right? Quarterback versus halfback. Well, they just both happen to be on the same team this time. So you're an MVP voter. Would you take a 4,500 passing yards and 30 touchdown season with maybe 6 interceptions for Daniel Jones, or a 2,000 yard, 20 touchdown season from Jonathan Taylor as your MVP?
20 touchdowns would mean he has 6 touchdowns in there. He'd have to slow down at a very slow pace to only be at 20. So you're basically saying he's not getting in the end zone for a while.
Just picking a number here. That's all it is.
If it's closer to that, it's more of an argument. It'll be like CMC and Brock Purdy a couple of years ago, where they almost cancel each other out and they defaulted to Lamar at that point, where it probably should have still been CMC. Actually, probably should have been Dak that year. But if we're going to, CMC had as good a case as anybody with his touchdown streak. When it comes to getting in the end zone, if Jonathan Taylor's 2,000 and then 20, then you can make more of the case for a quarterback. But if you're telling me he's in the mid to upper 20s with total touchdowns, like he's on pace for, even threatening LT's record, we see 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns a lot more frequently than we do that. I think there is a precedence for that. In the same vein, if I had my honorable mention bar down here, Daniel Jones is right there, as you mentioned. Josh Allen's, of course, always in there. Drake May's in the thick of it. Jackson Smith and Jigba, by the exact same logic, is right there too. Yeah. I can't put 2 people on here that came off a bye week. That's too much. So I only put 1 in there off the bye week. But JSN's on pace to pass Calvin Johnson's record too. It's like when we had Cooper Kupp and JT 3 years ago. They were both right in the thick of it. Probably could have Cooper Kupp a lot more because they made the playoffs, won the Super Bowl, all that. But I'm just saying, this is the year. Quarterbacks have been very good, but nobody's been terrorizing the league this year. This isn't last year's Josh Allen and Lamar and Joe Burrow. That hasn't really happened yet. They've all been very good. Stafford's numbers are outstanding. But what Jonathan Taylor is doing it right now through 8 weeks is absolutely sensational. And putting that team on his back, like he accounts for I think 78% of the team's rushing yards, which is the largest percent in the NFL by a lot. So it's not there. He's been outstanding. And
he's 33%. He is 33% of their total offense. It just that tells you how good he has been. By the way, the other 2/3 of their offense you can accredit to Daniel Jones, but I'm only saying that because I find it hilarious that Daniel Jones has had such a great season, as we talked about it going into the year, and how it'd just be like the ultimate thing that him and Jonathan Taylor have great seasons, and you have to pick one, and they end up canceling each other out, which I always think is the stupidest, hilarious thing. Like, I don't know, man. Like, give them both credit where it's credit's due. Not you, in case, but I'm talking MVP voters at the end of the year. Because like right now, we're watching 2 historic performances on the same offense about a team that has had a historical turnaround in a lot of cases, where Daniel Jones was written off twice. Jonathan Taylor has gone through injuries and been written off as no longer a top 5 back in the NFL twice. They lost their owner. They have a young, and I don't take this as me slouching on the new owner at all. But when she was announced, the comments that were posted were, "Oh, great, a female owner who's in her 40s, 50s, or
Three of
younger
them,
age." Yeah.
3 of them on top of it.
Oh, great, you're just going to hand it down the family. Look at what's happening. This team is excelling, and Jonathan Taylor and Daniel Jones are at the forefront of it. And if voters don't look at this and recognize that this is a very talented team, and now they have the full support of their organization behind them, there's no one eye towards the future type of thing. They're all bought in now to win now. And I think that's something you look at in Indy is so much different than what you look at in Dallas, and why that dysfunctional organization still operates. Indy is operating on a whole different level on the field and off the field because of all of the changes that have happened in this team over the last year. And I think that's worth mentioning when you talk Jonathan Taylor and you talk Daniel Jones. Yeah, I don't disagree with your list at all. I love it. But yeah, I just needed to throw that 2 cents in there because we don't really talk about the ownership very often on the show, but it's worth shouting them out because they're doing an incredible job.
It's amazing. As soon as they took over, everything flipped on its head. But the last thing for Jonathan Taylor, leads the NFL in rushing first downs, leads it in touchdowns, leads it in big runs, has the second longest rush of the season at 80 yards, just behind Bijan's 181. Leads it with 850 yards, leads in attempts, 6 yards a carry on top of that. So it's effective. It's not just it's not a complete bludgeoning hammer every time, and has yet to fumble the ball. His biggest thing coming out of college and what plagued him at some miscellaneous years, and despite the amount of times he has touched the ball, he has yet to fumble. And that's not even including his receiving production that we've had on there as well. And it's not just that, as you mentioned, Daniel Jones is cooking too. That passing offense is still very good. So it's not like the Titans with Derrick Henry. It was, please, King Henry, save us. You are our only hope. It is, stop it if you can. Get behind Quentin, Bernard, and Bortolini. Good luck, everybody else.
Hey, Eagles, this is how you feed the mouths. This is how you do it.
They did it this last week. This is the 1 week we can't make fun of them for.
No. I'm talking last year. Because last year with the Eagles, it was Saquon or bust. It was the late game. It honestly, Jonathan Taylor has a bad week, and me giving him 20 touchdowns is telling the world that he's probably going to have 2 or 3 bad weeks between now and the remaining 9 games. That's okay because the offense from everywhere else is going so well, and that defense is playing exceptionally well too. But I think this is how you look at an offense. You want to see a total offense. This is what you're seeing from the Colts. And honestly, you picking one is impressive because I don't have the gall to pick just one personally because they're both on my fantasy teams. So
I'll round it out by just saying, to add to all of it too, he's still doing it all. Michael Pittman is tied for second NFL in receiving touchdowns with 6. So it's not just saying Jonathan Taylor's doing all of this in a incredibly balanced and unbelievably efficient offense.
Offensive Rookie of the Year is probably going to Tyler Warren at the rate they're going.
Especially with Ibuka being bagged up and slowing down a little bit too, and Tyler Warren continuing to be Tyler Warren. That's incredible season, but it's not a Colts glaze session. It is a Jonathan Taylor is leading the way for MVP, and it is time until proven otherwise that it doesn't have to be a dang quarterback. Yes. And if the Colts are the 1 seed, at the rate they're going, the way the season has gone, assuming nothing changes and everything continues on the same track, number 28 is going to be the reason why, along with Daniel Jones. But 28 is the catalyst. That offense runs through him. But that's going to do it for the MVP ladder, which is going to take us very quickly into Kelsey's favorite part of every show, and that is, of course, crunch time. And for crunch time, I'm going to keep mine really quick. We're going to talk a little bit of UFC fisticuffs. And, well, the main event ended. You know what? Let's just take a look. Here's how it ended. Tom Aspinall getting his eyes fingered like he's in the 3rd row of a movie theater on a second date. The guy's going bowling with his head. And the mitigated gall of the amount of people you will see online saying, oh, he quit. He took the easy way out. He's getting beat up, so that's why he stopped. He said he couldn't see. His eye's not really injured because it's not bleeding profusely, or he doesn't have a slashed retina. He's not Michael Bisping. It's time to start taking points for eye pokes because this was not the first eye poke. You do it once, it should be an immediate foul and you lose a point. You do it again, you're disqualified, or a second point deduction if the fight can continue. This is the epitome of victim blame. Imagine if this is your eyes. Do you plan on getting to it? How do you expect a fight after this if you can't see? That's knuckle deep, and not in the way that you do in high school. This is completely out of line. And it's not just, and you don't even need to hear me say it. Let's go ahead and listen to Man, let's go and hear something from the man who spent the most time in the UFC octagon of anyone all time, in Jim Miller. If we spent the most time in the octagon throwing punches at opponents at the highest level, shouldn't there be some eye pokes coming from guys like him, Frankie Edgar, RDA, Clay Guida? Shouldn't that be the way it goes? The guys that have spent historic amounts of time in the octagon. I believe it's over 6 hours of fight time for Jim Miller inside the UFC octagon. 6 hours, and he has never poked a guy in the eye. There are ways to prevent this. You just don't defend like you're playing the piano. I'm not going to read that part because this is a family-friendly show. But my point being, after everything else I said right before this, now it's a family show. But my point being is you can't be victim blaming when it comes to the eye pokes. Everything surrounding this is ridiculous. It's unfortunate. We had to wait 15 months to see Tom Aspinall through reasons completely outside of his control. And he gets stabbed in the eyes within 4 minutes multiple times. Oh no, his nose was bleeding. Gon landed 3 more jabs to his face and made his nose run. Doesn't mean he's getting teed off and was about to lose, so he quit and took the easy way out. Everyone's saying that with that stance really has never been punched in the head or poked in the eye before. And it really shows because that ish absolutely hurts getting anything in your eye. But I'm gonna leave it really quick and simple here. People are very dumb. And they're gonna rebook this fight, maybe the end of the year, maybe early January, depending on things. But my goodness, the fact that I'm even having we can see the issue here after that first still shot. How can you expect someone to fight after that? They need to find ways to fix the gloves so they bend your fingers. Like we've seen them in Japan. They've been multiple ones that are developed so you can't extend your hands like that. They force your fingers here to rest. Like that, they need to find ways to do it because you can't just put glasses. You can't put metal glasses on people's eyes at this point. And it really takes from the sport. It really mitigates it. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to go on my soapbox rant for 30 more minutes.
Just for the sake of just capping this off about how bad those eye pokes are, Tom Aspinall, as of today, has reportedly still not been able to regain full eyesight yet.
Yep, his dad posted that on their YouTube channel, basically saying he's still having trouble seeing, has gone to an eye doctor. Luckily, there's no permanent damage. They vlogged which is still kind of weird to be vlogging your entire journey through that, but that's neither here nor there. But the doctor did say no permanent eye damage, like no cut retina, no detached retina, no long-term eye damage.
No bone damage either, which is good.
Exactly. Like it's just, you basically just got finger punched in the eye socket a little bit. So you're going to keep all those jokes to myself, but I think that's a good way to wrap it up. So we don't need to see any more me complaining, but I, and as well as Kelsey, appreciate you all so much for joining us, and we'll be sure to see you all again next week.